How do you make your business more efficient? Like, I love efficiency. I consider myself to be a master of efficiency. So I am the guy to talk to, but I struggle with how do I condense all of this into a YouTube episode to really help you? So instead of talking about a gimmick or a tactic, I'm mostly going to focus on principles that if you understand the principles, you'll really be able to increase the efficiency in your business. Okay, so I've got 6 different principles that I'm going to talk to you about to help you increase the efficiency in your business. The first one is to create a routine in your business, right? Create a step-by-step guide or a recipe that you follow the same way every single time. Now, I intentionally used a different word than using the word system, because sometimes when I say the word system, that just goes over people's head. But if I say a step-by-step process or a recipe, that's 100% a system. They're the same thing. So a cook, their system is they follow recipes. So when you create this routine, you'll lay it out, and the first time you create the routine, you're just kind of guessing. Let's say I'll do this step first, then this and this, and you might realize, you know what, it's better if I swap those 2 steps. If I do this first, it'll help me get this part done quicker. So you create a routine that you repeat over and over. Now what you're focusing on is that end result. More important than the steps and thinking that you've got to perfect each step, just pay attention to that end result and then make tweaks to the steps to see if you can get to that result quicker or more predictably. Okay, so that's principle 1 or step 1. The next step I would say is you've got to document it. So once you've figured out this routine or this step-by-step process, if you keep a record of it and you write it down, that allows some magic. 1, it allows you to internalize it in your head and realize, yeah, this is a system, this is a step-by-step process that is replicatable. You can write it down, and what that allows you to do is then hand that piece of paper or hand your computer to somebody else. They can go through the list and they can repeat it. That's how recipes in the kitchen work. You can have a master chef that knows food and flavors and everything inside and out. And when they're in the kitchen, they're in the zone and they put it together, they can create something that looks amazing, that tastes amazing, and they can document it. They can write down the ingredients. But imagine a recipe that had way more detail. Now, the example that came to my mind is Harry Potter. And when Harry Potter gets this potions book, there's some extra notes written in the margins. So a lot of the other students were following the recipe that's there, but the book that had the extra notes in the margins actually worked better, and it worked. So like, your goal when you create the step-by-step process is to refine it and perfect it and add notes here and there, so that if you give this list to somebody else, they'll be able to do it the exact same way that you do and therefore get the exact same result. Okay, now that you've written it down, you've got to test giving it to someone else. So you give it to them and see if following it, they get the same results. Because there's a lot of things that we do that we take for granted. We've been doing it for so long, we just kind of know what to do and we don't even consider it. But if we've written it down and then we have that handed to somebody else and they go through those steps, you'll be able to notice things like, yeah, this is the specific tool that you should use here. Or this is a shortcut, that most people don't know about. You kind of thought everyone knew it, but now you realize you need to write it down, use this shortcut. Now this is part of the process. When you give your system to someone else and you ask them to run it, especially the first time, it will not hit 100%. They will not get it 100% there. So over time, your system will get better and better and better because you find all these things that you didn't think of, but you add them in. Now imagine you bring on somebody new and you hand your system to them and you say, this is what I want you to do, follow these steps. So they start following those steps. If they get it 80% of the way there on their first attempt just by following your system, then you know you've got a good system and you found a good team member, somebody that can get it 80% of the way there without any coaching or feedback, because they need training. They need training on your system. With a little coaching and guidance and interpretation of this recipe or this system, they'll be able to eventually get it to 100%. The reason that you want to test it and give it to other people and get feedback and continue to improve it is because you can't see everything. There's always going to be unexpected things. And people are different. I have different talents than somebody that I might hire to run the system. So where my strengths are might be a weakness for them. And so those things will need to be accounted for. So the next principles, I want to talk about focusing on bottlenecks. So this is just going to be basic drawing here. Let's say you have a system that This is where we start. These are all the steps that we follow. So we've got step 1, 2, 3, all the way to that outcome. And if I give this recipe to someone, they start here, they do the next step, they do the next step. What you're going to find is there's natural places that have bottlenecks. A lot of times when I think of the word bottleneck, I think of a funnel, but I want to draw a system kind of like a pipeline here. And you can have an assembly line, you can have a team of people where one person does this task, another person does that task, another person, or you might have these tasks are done by person A, then these tasks are done by person B, and so forth. But whenever you break things down in steps, you have the opportunity to find that there's bottlenecks. And anytime you create an assembly line, as efficient as assembly lines can be, a bottleneck might pop up. So let's say this task takes 5 minutes, and this task takes 10 minutes, and this one takes 5, and this one takes 10. But this one takes 90 minutes. Then this person or this task is just sitting there waiting for this. I mean, maybe this task only takes 5 minutes, so the person that's doing this task finishes their work pretty quickly, and they're just waiting and waiting and waiting for this one. The advantage of creating systems and mapping it out like this is you're going to notice bottlenecks right away. These are some of the first things that you're going to discover. And you can ask yourself questions like, what can be done to make this step more efficient? Can I decrease this to 45 minutes, cut the time in half? Or can I split this into 2 steps that might ease up the bottleneck? Or can I eliminate this step altogether? Is there a way that will bypass it and really make things more efficient? So when I created my business and I started learning how to create systems like this, I had heard stories about Henry Ford and the assembly line, and I thought, wow, the more steps in a system, the more efficient it can be. It just makes sense, because this is what I thought, that if I take this step and wow, what if I split that into 2 steps? So I've got, 2 minutes there, 3 minutes there, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes there. I thought that this meant that it was more efficient and I'd actually be able to get things done quicker. What I've learned in application is the more steps means the more opportunity for bottlenecks. The more bottlenecks there will be. And so just as an example, if I double the amount of steps, I might double the amount of people that are just sitting there waiting. And so over time, I've experimented and I've kind of found a balance to where let's combine these 4 steps, and maybe that adds up to, we'll just cross out the math there and say that adds up to 50 minutes. And if I can divide this task into 2 and this one equals 50 minutes, then if I look at it, it eases up the bottleneck and there's not people just sitting around waiting with nothing to do. So the point that I'm trying to make here is you want to create a system of steps that makes sense. Experiment with adding more steps and combining steps to see which ones are really the most efficient and get rid of the bottlenecks. I have a gift for you. It is a system all about YouTube and leveraging YouTube to generate leads for your business. Now, if you don't know who I am, I'm a YouTube producer. That's what I do. I produce dozens and dozens of YouTube channels for business owners who are influencers. And I've taken 2 years to build this book, to put all of my strategies in there. It's full color so that I can really show you a lot of behind the scenes examples of how you can do that. And what's unique to my strategy is it's not about going viral and getting millions of views. It's how to maximize the results you get from a small amount of views. So you can even get 100 views and generate $10,000 from that in your business. I want to give this to you for free as long as you cover my costs. So the cost to print and to ship, if you cover that, there's no profit to me. That's my gift to you. Go to natesyoutubebook.com and you'll get that book there.